Do you remember all those techfluencers who were trying to convince you that if you learned how to code, that was your golden ticket to easy money and an easy job?
Tech jobs drying up and why they aren't coming back so soon. And there's a lot of really interesting data for you guys to consider.
Tech jobs keep disappearing. Meta is the latest company to announce more employee layoffs across various departments.
Tech offices are emptier than ever. Nearly 30 million square feet has been vacated. At first, it started when remote work was on the rise, but now there aren't any employees left. With the rise of AI and widespread layoffs, this issue is intensifying even outside of Silicon Valley. Let's take a look at some videos and see what's going on.
Do you remember all those techfluencers who were trying to convince you that if you learned how to code, that was your golden ticket to easy money and an easy job?
Did you know learning how to code is one of the most in-demand skills in the world?
You have to start coding. If you're seeing this, you probably thought about coding before.
Right, the layoffs are already piling up this year.
With more layoffs just announced.
Last year, more than 250,000 jobs in the tech industry disappeared. From 2010 to 2022, we basically were living through a modern day American gold rush known as the tech industry. This is a map of Silicon Valley, and companies like Google, Meta, Uber, they were born during this time. And during that 2010 to 2022 timeframe, there was a lot of free money floating around that was helping to basically create and finance these businesses. And the reason why there was so much money was because interest rates were almost at zero. So it basically cost no money to borrow money. If you literally had any idea for an app, there was a good chance that you could probably find an investor to give you some money. Do you remember the con artist Anna Delvey? Well, her ex-boyfriend had this ridiculous app idea called a dream database, and he basically conned people into giving him money. He never made anything with that money. He basically stole it, and now he could never come back to the US. This is basically the time where we discovered how rich the rich could get. A lot of people were obsessed with Mark Zuckerberg. They heralded him as a genius. People admired him for creating Facebook, which was such a profitable company. And it wasn't until later, after much controversy, that now we're able to look at him critically. The same thing with Elon Musk. People were literally worshiping him. And he's always kind of been trolly, but after the whole Twitter X thing, public sentiment really turned on him. The reason why I bring this up is because during this time, tech CEOs could do no wrong. It wasn't until after the 2016 election that politicians and think tanks and professors and analysts were like, hey, are social media companies actually hurting society? And the media did a big part to create this mythic tech CEO fantasy. Basically, the tech industry and the media industry and everyone that was profiting off this industry was selling us this idea that the tech industry was the new way to achieve the American dream. And for some people, that really happened. Like for Mark Zuckerberg, he went from being rich to being incredibly filthy rich. And because these companies were so flush with investor cash, they were throwing out the most ridiculous salaries. Netflix at one point was paying software engineers over $1 million a year. I mean, it's actually really bizarre that we thought it was normal that engineers were making over $1 million a year. A rocket scientist makes around $100,000 a year. A pharmacist makes around $150,000 a year. Your primary care physician makes $180,000 a year. The salaries in tech were not normal, and it was 100% because of all the free money floating around.
The money ran out, interest rates have shot up, and these companies aren't spending like they used to.
All right, everybody, Illegal Recruiter back. I just did a really big deep dive on a pretty long article that came out in the Wall Street Journal around tech jobs drying up and why they aren't coming back so soon. And there's a lot of really interesting data for you guys to consider if you happen to be in the tech industry overall, and particularly around software engineering. So I hope this is helpful, but I'll give you the quick download of what I learned. So there have been serious shrinking job opportunities. As you all are aware, software development jobs have dropped by over 30%. Since February of 2020, layoffs are continuing through 2024. I've been on this channel talking about that and bringing you that real-time information. So the market has really tightened for roles that were once in high demand, and tech firms are cutting non-revenue generating projects and focusing on AI. I'm going to talk about this AI investment. I actually, in my day job, having, lunch with a lot of private equity investors and VC investors and others that are, giving me their thoughts on why they're investing in AI, how much they're investing, why their attention is turned that way. So you can see that trickle down effect when attention is turned elsewhere. There are things that will be on the chopping block, or that budget will be, transferred to a different initiative. And this is the result of that change.
Are we in an AI bubble, or is AI really here to stay and take over people's jobs? This comment says, AI is a tool, not a solution. A lot of tech jobs are going offshore, and that's been the trend for years. Also, AI isn't developed enough to fully take any job. I agree with this. AI is a tool. Tech jobs are not going extinct like so many people want you to think.
Y'all pulled up and y'all would've seen y'all niggas outside.
Tech jobs keep disappearing. Meta is the latest company to announce more employee layoffs across various departments. I think two main factors are driving these tech layoffs despite a strong economy. First, tech companies are starting to realize productivity gains from their AI investments. Today, Google shared more than a quarter of new code is generated by AI, and last quarter, Amazon shared AI saved them 4,500 developer years of work. Second, investors are rewarding these companies for letting people go. Meta's downsizing was met with a hell yeah, and Spotify's stock jumped by 7.5% after its layoff announcement in December. So in summary, if AI boosts the productivity of each employee, you no longer need as many to get the same amount of work done, and letting people go is now part of a broader effort by companies to show investors that they are serious about cutting costs and becoming more efficient. For more daily business videos, make sure to follow.
Don't forget the outsourcing, which has been happening for a while now.
This single image sums up the economic meltdown we are in right now. These are a room full of empty chairs which retail at $2,000 each, now selling at 1/4 of its price. Across the corporate industry, companies are scaling down Christmas parties and staff are being forced to use their accrued leave during December and January. Tech industry companies are facing the biggest bust out, with these companies owing millions to its creditors, and layoffs of the most talented individuals occur at mass scale right now. In the last month alone, Meta has fired 11,000, Amazon 10,000, and Twitter about 5,000 employees, and tech companies are struggling to stay afloat with higher interest rates which discount their future cash flow to a much lower valuation. So if you got a tech job when the interest rates were low, you might be at risk. So what are you doing right now to stay employed?
Well, at least those nice chairs are on sale.
You probably already noticed this, but there's been a lot of instability in the tech space recently. There's a recession, a lot of tech companies are getting hit hard, and so you see a lot of news about like layoffs and stuff. And I remember the first bits of news about layoffs were starting when I started my job search. And I felt a lot of like anxiety of like, should I be job searching in tech right now? Should I be trying to switch careers into data analytics? Like, is there certain areas that I should and should not be targeting? So I just wanted to say I've had my eyes on the, data analytics, data job space for about a year now. And it is rough right now, like as bad as I've seen it. But it seems like some people are still hiring, and I wanted to share that. So we know who's not hiring. We know that like Microsoft, Google, all the big tech companies, and like tech startups that are like specifically like tech, all seem to be doing layoffs and not hiring. On the other side though, it seems like medical companies like healthcare, like physical goods and services, because there's not the masking and the lockdowns, anything that's like not actually tech seems to be doing well right now. And you don't just have to look for a data analyst job at Google or Microsoft. You're not going to get one anyways. Or at a tech company. All these other companies, healthcare, huge need for data analysts. So the market is bad right now. And so like, I'm not going to lie to you and be like, yeah, just get into data analytics right now. It'll be a snap, because it is bad right now. But if you are looking to jump to a new job, that's what I've noticed. Seems like non-tech companies are actually still doing okay and still hiring.
For now, then it's going to be banking, manufacturing, and finally retail. This comment says, I work in healthcare and it's so laid back, I love it. No wonder it's so difficult to get a prescription because they're so relaxed.
I'm going to say something and I'm scared to say it because I don't want y'all to come for me. Remember, we listen and we do not judge. Before COVID, Most people couldn't get into tech. Tech was saved for exceptional people. People who are getting into these companies went to the best schools at the top grade. They did a bunch of internships, were able to work their way into tech. Or they were from other Fortune 500 companies. They had very niche experience. Most people we were hiring when I was at tech companies were people from other tech companies. But tech was not accessible to everybody. When I got my first tech job, I was like, what is happening? Shocked, flabbergasted. The only reason I got into tech is because I had very niche experience, and I also was very good at my job. I need you to listen to that part. I was very good at my job. I was known in my industry. I was also one of the few people who had the experience that I had. While I was shocked, it wasn't that it wasn't deserved. And 2021 happened and tech became a lot more accessible for people. People were getting hired left and right. These 6-figure jobs, barely any experience. Companies were having a great old time because they were able to hire people who were a lot cheaper than other people in tech. And they were like, we could just teach them. And they did for a couple years. They decided, okay, that's enough. We've laid off so many people that the people who've been working in tech are now a little bit more humbled when it comes to their salary. But now companies are going back to hiring people who are really good at their job. People who are experienced, people who have the type of experience from comparable companies, which usually means other tech companies. While I have loved working in tech and I currently still work in tech, there are so many other industries that we can go after. You do not deserve to start a position and then 3 weeks later get laid off.
This is so true. Only the best of the best are getting hired right now. Did everyone see my other video? Mark Zuckerberg is offering engineers $100 million a year. That's an NBA contract. He's trying to poach the best talent from other tech companies like OpenAI.
Tech companies are at the forefront of technology, so they're really susceptible to changes in the market. If I were laid off or otherwise affected by the recession, I would not buy the new MacBook from Apple, but I would keep my internet subscription from Comcast. So that's one of the reasons I tell all my students, don't apply to tech jobs at big tech companies, apply to tech jobs at non-tech companies. That's why so many of my students end up at places like Comcast, Home Depot, Walmart, etc. There are these giant companies with some of the highest revenue in the world that pay really well, that have great benefits, etc. But because they're not big tech companies, there's way less competition when you apply for jobs there. So not only is it easier to get in for your first tech job at a company like that, but it's less likely that you're going to get laid off eventually too. It's pretty much always a good time to break into tech. And let's say the worst case scenario happens. You end up getting laid off anyway. So you lose your job, but you have tech job experience on your resume. It's going to be even easier to get a new job than it was when you first broke into tech.
This is great advice, but unfortunately, all those tech companies that are laying off people have just filled the entire job market with talented individuals. Where do you think they're going to apply now? They're applying to those companies like Comcast, Home Depot, Delta Airlines, so it's definitely still an uphill battle for everyone.
People are now moving away from big tech companies and going to non-tech companies and working as tech workers instead. Let's talk about it. So with the 2024 tech layoffs, with a lot of these big tech companies laying off more than like 6% of their company, a lot of people have been very skeptical about the job market. And a lot of times these big tech companies have only hired just 2/3 of the people they extend offers to, which means that they wouldn't even allow you to work at the job even if they give you an offer, whereas non-tech companies hire about 9 out of the 10 candidates that they extend offers to. And a lot of people are feeling disillusioned with the fact of working at a specific tech company for many years, because a lot of times they would basically try to get you to go for a promotion, not give you the promotion, and then you would end up working at the same position. So why are these tech workers going to non-tech companies then? It's because a lot of these non-tech companies are now providing major competitive pay and salary to attract the tech talent that has been laid off.
That is so grimy. Companies really baiting people into saying more years without ever giving them that promotion. This is why no matter what these recruiters try to say, if you want the promotion, it's better to jump from company to company. Because clearly, as we've seen, being loyal to these corporations means nothing. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with these market trends. Thanks for watching.